Yesterday's Supreme Court decision was a huge win for President Trump, not just regarding his efforts to end automatic birthright citizenship, but in concentrating more power into the presidency. The 6-3 ruling from the conservative supermajority Supreme Court limited the ability of lower courts to issue nationwide injunctions, one of the key tools that the judicial branch had in its checks and balances on an executive branch that they believe is exceeding its lawful authority. Trump heralded the decision yesterday.
Well, this really brings back the Constitution. This is what it's all about, and this is really the opposite of that. Well, I think taking power away from these absolutely crazy radical left judges is a tremendous, this is such a big day. It only takes bad power away from judges. It really doesn't take power. It takes bad power, sick power, and unfair power.
It was a much different take than that from Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who called this, quote, an attack on our system of law and said, quote, no right is safe, writing, the court's decision is nothing less than an open invitation for the government to bypass the Constitution. The executive branch can now enforce policies that flout settled law and violate countless individuals' constitutional rights, and the federal courts will be hamstrung to stop its actions fully. Joining us now, Andrea Flores, Vice President for Immigration and Policy and Campaigns at Forward.us, and Skye Perryman, President and CEO of Democracy Forward. Thank you both very much for coming to the weekend. Andrea, what legal options are still available for those who may be impacted by the Supreme Court's decision yesterday before the policy goes into effect in 30 days?
Sure. So I want to be clear that there are still options. They are more limited than when we lived in a world where nationwide injunctions were still allowed by this court. But the plaintiffs in this case already filed for a new class certification and a temporary restraining order that would once again block the order. And people must remember that, I heard President Trump there, but he keeps losing with the lower courts, even with Republican appointed judges, on whether this suspension or attempting to amend the Constitution on birthright citizenship is legal. So it's highly likely that this order gets blocked through a different mechanism. However, it is concerning that the court is limiting the tools that people have who may be impacted by a presidential executive order, but not all legal remedies are foreclosed at this stage.
Skye, Democracy Forward, when you guys released a statement on this yesterday, you sounded, I think, you very clearly made clear what the issue was. But then you also, guys, shown a little bit of hope for folks, right? Like that like Andrea saying, like this isn't the end, that the pathways are still there. So what are groups like yours who have been very active over the last 6 months, what are groups like yours doing next?
Well, look, let me say, we want the American people to know that we will be in court every single day if this administration continues to trample on their rights. We will be in court and we will win orders, and we are going to find a way, or we are going to make one. You've already seen the class action mechanism that Andrea mentioned is already being utilized in this case. But the court's decision was quite limited in other respects, too. There are a range of laws where we have been filing cases and winning orders, yes, before Republican-appointed judges, before Democratic-appointed judges. We've won these orders before judges appointed by President Trump himself. And the court was expressed that that category of cases was not included in yesterday's order. So we are disappointed, and we think this is a five-alarm fire for people and communities across this country. But we also are committed to getting into court and doing what we can every single day, and there are a range of tools to do that.
Andrea, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, in her dissent, her blistering dissent to this ruling, I just want to read part of it because she gets to the bigger issue here, and that is the disdain for the lower courts. She writes, this court's complicity in the creation of a culture of disdain for lower courts, their rulings, and the law as they interpret it will surely hasten the downfall of our governing institutions, enabling our collective demise. Now, and I want to bring that up because both you and Skye are saying, what happened yesterday isn't as bad as it looks at first blush, because there's still avenues But what do you make of Justice Jackson's alarm about the bigger issue here, that what the Supreme Court did yesterday was take a hammer to lower courts?
Well, this administration has shown that they are unwilling and have times openly defied lower courts. So we could go back earlier this year, Judge Boasberg, a federal judge, attempting to tell the Department of Homeland Security to turn deportation flights around, which is a normal order from a federal judge. And you saw the administration take multiple steps to not comply with that order. And, that question is still really working its way in the alien enemies case, when the president is trying to use a wartime power to justify the disappearance of over 200 men who are still in El Salvador. So I think with Justice Jackson, she's a former district court judge. I think she is really alarmed. It is really important that the district courts can continue to provide a check on the president's power. And I think in the realm of immigration cases, we're seeing them test time and again how much they have to listen. I was really alarmed when the Department of Justice in the alien enemies case said an order from the bench was not they did not have to follow that, right? So that they're testing over and over again. And I hear from her that alarm, because here they're saying these lower courts cannot be an effective check on the president. And I'm really worried as a former White House official myself, the fact that there's going to likely be presidents who test amending the Constitution through these orders. And now the nationwide injunction tool is off the table, and it will make it there's more cumbersome legal hurdles now to check the president. So I think her alarm is warranted. But the reason I think people cannot panic yet, right? Let's talk about the people behind this birthright citizenship case, expectant mothers, right? I'm very concerned that I want them to feel that they can trust if a class is certified, that they do still have options for them, their families, and their children. The irreparable harm of the maternal health outcomes, it's important that we don't panic there, and that people understand that advocates are still filing cases. I think now there's 3 different cases now that have been filed to block the birthright citizenship order. So that's really on my mind, right? Where we should both be alarmed, but we should also be calm here when it comes to this major constitutional question on birthright citizenship.
Sky, the class actions that's what's next, right? And folks have already started to do that. But for people watching who don't fully understand, now that it seems to be the onus on the American people if they think they've been wrong to join some of these class actions, and it gets certified, but how does it actually work? Or do you have to be like a black mom who's pregnant from another country who's going to have a kid here? Do you have to be just someone pregnant who might have a kid here? And all the other iterations of people that might be impacted by this birthright citizenship case or any of the other cases that are coming through.
The class action mechanism is one we've already been using, not just in birthright citizenship, but for instance, the Alien Enemies Act case is a class action case where the judges have ruled. We have brought cases in the grants context to restore community funding for victims of crimes that this administration has discontinued. So this is a common mechanism. And I do think that you're right. I think maybe the administration wants the onus to be on the American people. Justice Jackson rightfully in the oral argument called this catch me if you can justice. And by the way, this administration needs to be held accountable for trying to force the American people to have to chase justice in this country, because that's not how we operate. But what we can tell everyone watching at home is that there are lawyers that are going to work every single day to make sure that classes are certified, that cases are brought in the way to get relief to people throughout this country. And we are going to work to make sure that the communities affected know how to access that relief. So, it may be a catch me if you can system of justice. That is a travesty, but we are going to do everything that we can to make sure that people and communities really can get the relief that they need. And you're already seeing that happen in the courts, not just in this instance, but in so many of the cases that we're involved in.